For many years now, Russ and Craig have had many wide-ranging conversations with folks from all over the gaming world. This is one of those conversations.
D6G, the Lost Chapter. Hey, Craig, so I'm super excited now. They got this like Chipotle egg sandwich thing happening here. Have you seen this?
I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't had one every day for the last 5 days.
Right? How good is that? It's like spicy and sweet.
It's crazy, and I'm getting sick. I think I have what you've got. I think you made me sick somehow through the internet, and it burns right through that sinus problem.
Hey, Craig, who are those two gentlemen in the corner? I think I can tell from their attire they might be gamers. Do you know who those are?
Yeah. Well, I think that would be Adam and Brady.
Hey, you noticed my Mega Man shirt.
Exactly. Nice shirt, buddy. That's awesome.
Oh, good callback.
Great callback. So what are you guys enjoying on this fine evening at Dunkin' Donuts here at the center of the universe where all gamers apparently hang out?
Oh, I'm just drinking my normal blueberry coffee.
Ooh, blueberry. Excellent choice. I love the blueberry coffee.
Yeah, just a coconut iced coffee for me.
All right, so you're staying focused. I like it. So you're watching what you're eating. I appreciate that, and just really enjoying a fine caffeinated beverage.
Definitely look like brothers, but you wouldn't happen to be twins, would you?
No.
We say we are, but
really?
There's
we are
out there.
Now, do you look?
We're very slim.
Yeah. We've had twins on the show recently, so we got to be careful. You can't have too many back-to-back twins.
I feel like we're being infiltrated by clones.
Yeah, it gets very suspicious.
It's a plague. Yeah, it's going around.
Yeah,
it's our gimmick.
So have you guys seen this meme going around? I got this the other day in Twitter, where the meme was you don't, without explanation or anything, you just tweet a classic video game you used to enjoy. Did you see this?
Oh yeah. I got tagged on like 4 of those.
I know, right? So I had to jump in immediately, and the other thing you have to do is tag 4 other people, right? So of course you make it's like chain letters from the 80s are back, right? So I had to. So I want to know what you guys tagged. I tagged my first one was Starflight. Do you guys remember Starflight? This is pretty old school.
I've never heard of that one. No.
So Starflight was Electronic Arts, and it was a game where you flew throughout the galaxy in your spaceship and basically mined and gathered resources and traded and fought. But it wasn't like a through the cockpit, because it predates all that. But it was more like just flying around exploring the universe. Every single planet was like this whole procedural universe of planets and everything. And it was kind of the first game to really do that. And it was just what I was blown away by was sort of the limitlessness. Is that a word?
Oh, we're just gonna let that go. There's
the expansiveness of the universe.
Ooh, there you go. Wow,
so
look at.
I had to back up and read you out of there. But I just found, I don't know what was compelling about it. And it wasn't like, I'm sure if you went back to it and played it now, it might not hold up. But at the time, I had the poster from the game on my wall in freshman year of college. Like I was just like, this was my game. Like this was just so cool. So Starflight was one of my favorites.
That actually reminds me of a newer game. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. Starbound.
Yes. Yeah.
That whole premise is very similar to that, and that was a pretty fun game. But that's a newer game. So
yeah, Starflight was a classic. And you dock at the space station. Here's the thing about it that was really kind of cool. So you'd go to a solar system and you'd have to explore the different planets, and you're trying to mine. It was almost like the original Mass Effects, or you'd fly around and mine stuff. It was kind of like that. Without all the other cool first-person shooters, 2 shooting steps. But then you'd go to the space station, and your little, like, barely well-animated dude could walk across the round circular spaceport and go to the ship's, equipment section, or go over to the market and sell your cargo. And this was like state of the art. That I was like, oh my god, that's so cool. But it was just kind of a neat, and it's been done now, like in many games. Like the more recent one, was it Star Rogue? Can't remember the one that just came out that I enjoyed. But there's one that recently just came out that reminded me of it, but much more updated. But I really like this one.
Brady would love that because Brady's always loved games where you could get out of your vehicle.
Yeah,
that's the odd thing is that was what I tagged instantly. Because whenever I talk about video games, the only one that ever comes up for me as my favorite is Blaster Master for NES.
Oh yeah,
it's an older game. It's not too obscure, but it's a little less popular than Zelda and stuff like that. But
so I
just love it.
What did you like about Blaster Master? What made it awesome for you?
Well, when I was a kid, the concept of having this awesome tank that like upgrades and you could hop out as a little dude that was kind of like useless on the main map, but he had like the dungeon crawl parts where he could like upgrade his guns in there and stuff. That was like a whole different level of video gaming for me. And for some reason that really just caught on. So, after that, it was like Grand Theft Auto kind of had the vehicle stuff, on foot stuff that I just got really into. So that's probably one of my favorite aspects of video games is having like the vehicle stuff, vehicle combat, vehicle action stuff with on foot stuff as well.
Yeah.
And then Blaster Master also had the non-linear level design where you'd actually have to access different levels by getting different upgrades to like blow open doors or, fly up to a higher point, stuff like that.
That's awesome. And I really I remember very distinctly when some of the first games came out that you could get out of your vehicle, right? Because prior to that, games were either you were driving a car all the time, like a racing game, or you were flying a plane, like a flight sim, or you were in a spaceship, or you were on foot. But getting in and out was like crazy cool, right? That was just awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. What about you, Adam? What's some of the ones you remember fondly?
Well, if my shirt didn't give away, I loved Mega Man on the NES, and the whole Mega Man line was extremely addicting for me as a kid. But that one is more what I played by myself. If Brady and I were playing together, we would always play Double Dragon 2 and all other Double Dragon games that were co-op. We loved the co-op games. And there was one obscure NES game called Cowboy Kid that we played all the time. And I don't know, barely anybody I talked to ever knows that game, but
I don't think I know. Now I got to Google it. I don't think I know Cowboy Kid.
It's a very obscure
game. And the Cowboy Kid we played as a kid of the sheriff in town, and he had his buddy who was a Native American kid, and they would go around busting up criminals. They would go hunt down the wanted posters, and you could pick which criminal you wanted to go after, and each criminal had their own level. And there was also upgrades you could find, like you saw if the Cowboy Kid had a knife, and his buddy, the red Native American guy, had they both have knives, right?
No, he had. I think they both might have had knives, but no, the Native American guy got the tomahawks and the boomerangs.
Yeah, but you got upgrade. You found those around the town, so you could get guns and upgrade your weapons.
Look at the old screenshot.
Mustache.
I'm loving the screenshots. These are awesome.
Hey, Tom's in there.
These are great. These are awesome. So this looks like a classic. So basically you're just walking around town beating people up.
Yep, you pick the criminal you want to go after, you hunt them down, capture them until you
had these like kind of themed levels where if you went after like the train robber guy, you'd have to go on this train and it'd be like jumping across the top of the train as you're chasing him down. So it had these and it sort of had those like adventure RPG elements where you'd upgrade your weapons and you'd find secrets and everything. But I remember the one weird thing about that game is there was a bug or something at the very end because you had this mansion you had to like fight your way through, and it was this maze. But it wasn't really a maze. You just had to kind of get lucky about what door you went into. Because I remember looking up like the path you had to take, and it was different sometimes.
Yeah, it was like those old like that old Zelda game where if you didn't take the right path, it would reset.
Right,
it was very
bizarre.
And you guys made me think of games I didn't have on my list when you mentioned that. So did you ever play any of the early Sid Meier stuff, like the original Civ or his original Pirates game? Did you ever see those?
The Pirates I've seen and played. I never played much of them myself, but I was always aware of them. I always saw them talked about and everything.
So Pirates, I think, would appeal to you because basically you're getting in and out of your boat. Oh, so, nice. And then you're dancing with women, so it's a win.
A whole genre around.
It's a whole genre. It's a whole genre of getting in and out of vehicles.
Yeah, that's genre of video game. Yeah,
entering and exiting things.
Yeah.
Right? Now, wait. In the cowboy game, though, could you get on enough horses?
Yes, you could. Yeah,
see, that's why you liked it.
Yeah, I think they might have been stages where you had to be on a horse. And I don't think you optionally got off, but still.
Yeah, see, exactly right. So I think so, but I remember really like I was a huge fan of any Sid Meier stuff because the pirates were amazing. The scope of just the game, and what's funny about that game is like if you look at the old graphics of it, like if you Google the Wikipedia and see the original, like it's really like in 1986, like really classic stuff. That if you play one of the newer versions, like the one that came out on the Xbox 360 or the Xbox original, or on any of the more recent consoles, or in Steam now, it's really the same game. Like they didn't change much. Like there's cooler dancing graphics and stuff, but in the end, you're just a little boat floating around a map and doing stuff. But it's such a compelling gameplay; it still works.
Awesome.
So I like that one.
Some of those retro PC games that I got into, mostly the Sierra stuff, like the point-and-click adventure ones.
Oh, I love those.
And I think the most memorable one for me, besides like the obvious ones like Police Quest and Space Quest,
there's
one called Willy Beamish.
Yes. Yes. I played all those games. I loved every single one. So what did you like about Willy Beamish? What made that one appeal to you the most?
Well, as a kid, I just thought it was cool that one of the main concepts of the game was you were trying to get to a video game tournament. Like you practice your video game skills, and you had like a little Game Boy rip-off thing in your backpack. Like there was just, and it was so like it had that like kind of just kind of charm to it, because it wasn't guns blazing and all this. Right. It was more just you're this kid. I mean, they had some ridiculous stuff in there about like giant toilets and stuff. I remember you had to like climb out.
I like how the intro of the game is you just trying to get out of detention to start summer break or whatever.
Right. Oh yeah, it's awesome. That was what a great one. I loved all the point and click games, both from Sierra as well as LucasArts.
Oh yeah.
There was like a little rivalry obviously between those two companies for a long time, but I just really liked I think I played every single one. They were all fantastic. Did you guys play most of them, or did you just dabble in a few of them?
We played a lot of
the King's Quest, Police Quest, Space Quest, Full Throttle. That was
Full Throttle just got remade. That is a great game.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, really well done.
Yeah, and what's the pirate Guybrush Threepwood? What's his game? I'm totally blanking on the name of the game now.
Was it the Monkey Island?
Monkey Island? Yeah, they just redid that for. It was on Xbox Live recently, and my daughters fell in love with it all over again, and they played all the way through all of them, which was so wonderful to see, because those games completely hold up. Again, all they've really done is they refreshed the graphics a little bit and added some color and a few more pixels, but in the end, they're the exact same game with the exact same dialogue. And the best part about Monkey Island was the sword fighting. So it was all about you. When you sword fight, you're actually just picking the appropriate responses to insults back and forth. And it was fantastic. And so as you trained, you would just learn more responses. So when you met a really great swords person, you'd lose because you just didn't know the right response. You hadn't learned it yet. So you got to go fight weaker swords people to learn them and then go back. And it was just, oh man, what a great game. The whole concept is hilarious. And LucasArts did a really good job of weaving in a lot of humor. Sierra Online had it too, and they kind of invented the genre, but it was really LucasArts that took it to the next level. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, I think I was always more impressed with LucasArts, even though I had that soft spot for Sierra, because I grew up on a lot of those games.
Yeah,
but those LucasArts, I think LucasArts did Day of the Tentacle, right?
Yes.
Yeah, stuff like that. Those were just so like out there and well done. They always blew them away.
Yeah, good, really good. Those are definitely high on the nostalgia list for me. What about you, Brady? What else is on your list there?
So like retro stuff, I think it's not super retro, but I think one of the bigger games for me, it was more in the 90s, late 90s probably, was Resident Evil.
That's still pretty retro, man.
That's pretty retro. Yeah, I guess.
Look, anything over 20 years is retro. I mean, you just got to admit it. I know how old I am. I get that the 80s to me seems recent, but 90s is pretty damn old too. So especially in computer game years, right?
Right. Yeah.
So what did you like about Resident? I never got into Resident Evil. What did you like about Resident Evil?
I think it's weird,
that was never right. Like that's the
this is the very first Resident Evil, like the original one. Yeah. I mean, I've liked the entire series, but once it hit 4, I kind of lost a lot of interest because it got to be something else. Even though 4 was a great game, but Resident Evil 1, like just that whole. Just the setting, I think the creepy mansion, the special forces like police force guys, like it had a cool cast of characters. Had a really creepy setting, had zombies. And I was like, I loved like Night of the Living Dead as a kid. I was kind of a weird kid that liked zombies back before zombies were a huge deal,
Right.
But yeah, I think, and the combination of the weird thing about me is with these games, these action games, if you can have all these guns and grenades and stuff, I will always try to survive with just with a survival knife or a combat.
I love
it. So like I would play Resident Evil and try to beat the game with just using a combat knife and dying over and over and over again. So those kind of games encourage that.
Brady has a weird obsession with combat knives and halflings. Like he likes to be at a disadvantage at everything.
The underdog, yeah.
That's awesome. So that's a really good one. It's obviously a huge franchise, but I never really got into it, but I can appreciate it. I always stayed away from horror games in general. Like I'm not really I don't like horror movies either. I guess I'm just a wimp. But there is one game. So I don't know if you guys remember. Do you guys ever play the original Doom when it first came out?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Right after Castle Wolfenstein. So there was Castle Wolfenstein, right? There's 2 Castle Wolfensteins. There's the original back on the Apple IIe, but then there was the one that came out sort of in the PC gaming era, and then they did Doom. And Doom to me was like something changed when Doom came out, because not only was it like a very immersive first-person shooter that if you turn the lights out and wore your headset, like it literally freaked me out. Like that was the first game that like when I was playing and I was like, oh my God. And the second thing about it was you had the LAN party thing. So it was really one of the early games of like you bring it into work, because that was where there were only places where there were LANs at the time. You bring it into work on a weekend and all your friends bring it in, and now you're playing 6 or 7 of you running around just blowing each other up. And this was like just wow, like that's a thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, Doom like revolutionized multiplayer gaming. Like it kind
really
of like
did.
the grandfather of that.
Yeah, I mean, way before Quake. I mean, so many spinoffs came from it, but Doom really defined this idea that you can have this multiplayer environment, first-person shooter thing. But did you guys play? I played Doom. I don't know how many times I solved that freaking game, but I couldn't stop playing it.
Oh yeah, I played a lot of it. I think I played way more of Doom later in life when Doom 4 came out. I think was Doom 3 or Doom 4?
Yeah,
I think Doom 3 might have been.
Yeah, I think 3. I think it was 3. It was very scary. Like I remember playing that one with the lights off, and it scared me.
Yeah, I saw a lot of Doom play because I think Adam played it more than I did. But I remember kind of getting into Doom actually after I played a lot of Duke Nukem, because Duke Nukem was kind of sillier, and had just a really crazy like heavy metal vibe. But I remember playing that a lot. I was never good at first person shooters, so I usually just kind of watched either Adam or our older brother play it. But that was more my style. Doom was cool. I just never got as deep into it.
Right. It's funny too, is I'm trying to remember, but I'm pretty sure the first Doom had no up and down. Like you just rotated left and right and kept your sights on people. So it's like, thinking back, it was like, wow, that was really like 2D. Right. But it was still cool because you were in a 3D world, right? Like, and that was, again, the other thing about it was there weren't that many. I mean, Wolfenstein came before, but there wasn't really that many sort of first person, like you're there 3D. It was super experimental back then, right?
Oh yeah.
That was cool. And then the other one was, I think it was called Descent, but I think it even did it, but it was like Doom, except you were flying a little ship and you were flying through tunnels and things and you shot people, but then you could, the other one, you could LAN party that one up too. So you could have little ship fights. And that was also a big deal. Cause like, oh, wow.
That one was even older, wasn't it? Descent.
I think it might've been, it feels like it was.
That one.
It's all blurry to me now.
For some reason, something about Doom, I don't know what it is. I think it might be just pixelation or whatever, my memory, but it always reminds me of that one summer, Adam, where we would just play Ultima Online. Like, all day.
So that, I think Ultima Online was probably one of the most impactful video games of my youth. Was when my parents got like America Online, and the internet and everything, and we discovered this whole online role-playing game. And so Brady and I would take turns playing this game for hours, and because we only had one computer, and my parents would get so mad because it tied up the phone line for hours. That game
we spent like all summer inside while we should be playing outside.
Oh yeah, that's a true gamer right there. So I like Ultima Online. I remember. Well, first of all, my brother and I used to really be into the original Ultima. So Ultima 1, Ultima 2, Ultima 3, which were single player experiences, and they were out on the Apple IIe and the IBM PC. So we played those. But when Ultima Online came out, was it late 90s? I'm trying to remember when that happened. But
I think it was because I was in high school playing that, so it had to be like late 90s.
I feel like it was late 90s, and my brother and I found it, and it was sort of the first. I mean, there were other MMOs, but it was kind of like, I don't know, it just worked for us. And he got like real, like he and I played it. Got really into it. He got really into it. Like he found a major guild. They had like a whole initiation. Like it was huge, and it was
marriage.
It was very addictive, and it was kind of like you're kind of learning how to control that. He later got into WoW, but it was much more manageable. Yeah. But that was Ultima Online. You're right. It really did feel like Ultima Online sort of defined the MMO genre and kind of opened up what it could really be.
Yeah, it was a good precursor too for like just the social and atmosphere of MMO gaming. Because at the time when I played it, I would just we were just kind of hop in, and I think Adam liked to adventure more than me. I would just hop in, get a skinning knife, and go hunt animals and cook them.
Yeah, I would.
I want to cook this pie.
Right.
On my turn, I'd be in the graveyard with my paladin guy fighting skeletons and stuff, and I log out. And Brady gets in and starts killing birds and just making fires and cooking pie.
Making pie. That's what Granger was doing.
The weird part was that I'd go to school, and like I always thought I was kind of like nerdy at the time because I was kind of trying to be a cool kid in school because we were in a metal band, so we tried to have this persona, and I was kind of trying to hide my nerdiness. But then I talked to these guys in class and I'd like let it slip that I played Ultima Online. And there's like these jock guys that be like, oh yeah, I play Ultima Online. I have my blacksmithing up to like 99 and all this stuff. I'm like bragging about it. And they started like trying to log into my game and show me how to play and stuff. And I'm like, wow, I did not see this coming.
I had that experience with the old game, The Bard's Tale, which was a really old, if you like, oh God, I'm really dating myself now. So a lot of the old classic games, like the first RPG dungeon delvers, like Wizardry, which is like really one of the early ones. It was the first game that actually had like, it looked like you were walking through a dungeon, but all you saw was like really bad, like 1982 line drawings of the dungeon walls. And you'd walk and walk and walk, and then there'd be a really bad pixelated drawing of a spider. And then the rest would be text. So it would say like, you're now fighting a spider. And what do you do? And you have a party and you can cast spells and all that. But Bard's Tale was kind of like the successor to that. And like in the late 80s, it had color graphics and really cool story. But I remember going to class similarly, like a bunch of what I would define as school kids, and I was not. And I'd be like, and somehow it came up. Or one of them was sitting there with the Bard's Tale, box. And I'm like, what? You play Bard's Tale? Like, yeah, we got into it, like talk for 20 minutes about we're cataloging all the monsters and keeping track of everything. And it was just like, it's amazing to find it's amazing how many closet gamers there were out there. And nowadays gaming is a lot more mainstream, but back then it was like very much a sort of thing you didn't really talk about unless you were with total nerds.
Yeah, that's what I find interesting. Like reflecting on that, because that experience I had with Ultima, it kind of prepared me for how the whole World of Warcraft thing happened, because I kind of had this big stigma about World of Warcraft for a long time, because I was like, oh, I don't want to be, just another person addicted to MMOs. So I kind of avoided it, even though most of our friends played it, and Adam played it a lot more than me. But like, I think like that kind of shift I kind of noticed early on just from Ultima, and it kind of got wider and wider from World of Warcraft.
Yeah, I dabbled in a WoW. I loved what frustrated me about WoW a little bit was I loved the other stuff Blizzard had done. So I loved Orcs versus Humans, right? Which became Warcraft. I loved that. And I loved StarCraft. But I kind of liked World of Warcraft, but I was kind of where you guys were. I was kind of like, well, I did this already with Ultima. And so I dabbled just to see it. But I never really had that addictive person. I never got into MMOs. Like I'd always buy the MMO because the world looked cool, and you play that first like hour or 2 hours of content. There's a really compelling story to get you into the game, and then you get through that, and then all this just farming and pick up and deliver quests.
Yeah,
and it's all walls of text, and I'm like, I'm out. This is
that was my problem with it too. And we like Adam's probably gonna talk about here in a second. Is we've been playing a lot lately, and I'm really impressed by how much they've improved the immersion and the story aspect of the game. That's like all I really care about when I play. So yeah. I'm actually guilty of getting like really sucked back into it right now.
Oh, cool. Well, did you try? Now we're getting into modern stuff, but I almost got sucked into. So my wife and I actually played Star Wars, Old Republic, Knights of the Old Republic online for a while, because I'm a huge BioWare fan. So this is only kind of retro now, because now we're getting into the 2000s. But like, I love Knights of the Old Republic, the original Xbox game. And I love everything BioWare. Even the most recent Mass Effect, I enjoyed. It wasn't as good as the earlier stuff, but I still really liked it. So I love BioWare's RPGs and how they manage the teams and how the whole storytelling process works with all their stuff. So I really wanted to like Knights of the Old Republic, the MMO. But I did like it for a while, but then again, at some point it just broke for me and it got back to the pick up and gather stuff. I don't know. Maybe they fixed it since then, but
I think with Star Wars, the Old Republic, I liked it too, but I think they focused really hard on the first part of that game. Like your first 20 levels, because you do those dungeons, those instances, and you have those conversations, like where you could like say what you want to say. That was really cool. But then like the later game was just, okay, this is just World of Warcraft.
Well, they realized how much work it was and became right, because the beginning reminded me a lot of a classic BioWare, single player experience. You're answering questions, it's influencing your light and dark and the whole thing. And then you're right, about halfway, maybe about level. I felt like level 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 or whatever it was, it started turning into a classic MMO again.
Yep, I agree with you on that one.
Yeah. So what else was some of the classics you guys enjoyed that we've not talked about yet?
Well, I always had a affinity for role playing games. I think even back on Super Nintendo when Brady and I found out about Final Fantasy III, that one was cool because you could actually play 2-player. We always looking for 2-player games, and when battles came up, you could like split the party, like who controlled who, and that game was cool because it had two of the protagonists were twins also, Edgar and
Mhm.
Sabin, and those happened to be our favorite characters. We didn't even know they were like going to be twins in the game, but so that was a pretty iconic game for us. And also Final Fantasy VII years later, that was a big one too. Played a ton of that one.
I felt bad because I kind of never got into Final Fantasy, and my oldest daughter, who's now 15, she just got into Final Fantasy 15 when it came out last year, and she loved it. Like, she loved every minute of it. She just got totally in love with it, played the heck out of it, got all the DLC, got through the whole thing, and so she really fell in love with it. But I never, for some reason, Final Fantasy never got me. I don't know why.
Yeah,
there's like a personal feeling.
For some reason, for me, there was only certain ones. Like some of them, I latched on to probably because I played them when I was younger and they were nostalgic. A lot of the newer ones I haven't really gotten into just because I haven't made myself play them.
Right. So yeah, speaking of RPGs, so I have some. Again, I'm such an old guy, but so I mentioned Wizardry, but there was a series of games that I really liked, and they kind of did it again recently. But I don't know if you guys remember, there used to be a company called SSI, and they did these gold box games. But what was amazing about them, as a super nerd who not only played video games but also played Dungeons and Dragons in the 80s, they came out with a game called Pool of Radiance.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so what was great about Pool of Radiance was you were playing a multi-character RPG. So you had a party, going through an adventure, but you were actually using the D&D rule set, like down to everything. And it was just so cool to see D&D in a video game. I mean, so many of these video games are inspired by D&D, but here's one that's actually using the mechanics. And that blew me away. I thought that was awesome.
Was that Black Isle, the company?
Well, it was SSI originally. Okay. I don't know who ended up. I know it's been redone. So I think someone else eventually picked it up, but they were the original. I'm sure if we Wikipedia it, we can find out. But I love that game. And they did a bunch of other, under those gold box games. Let me look up the Pool of Radiance, because there was quite a few other games like that. Yeah. So it was SSI, Pool of Radiance. The logo was Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, this is old. It had a 5 1/4 inch disc in it. So this is really old school stuff.
Well, it sounds kind of like Baldur's Gate, which is like my first exposure.
Yes. So eventually the reboot of this whole thing was the people who grew up on that built Baldur's Gate.
Okay.
And Baldur's Gate, it was awesome because that was like the pinnacle, I think. And I know there've been some reboots since then. Recently, some Kickstarter stuff came out that was really great. But we'll talk more about that in the main show. We talk about modern games, but Pool of Radiance stuff was. But yeah, talk about Baldur's Gate. That was a fantastic game.
Yeah, that's actually my two. Like, because I didn't do a lot of PC gaming, obviously, because like when I mean, those adventure games were on my Macintosh, that's like Police Quest and Boy the Image. But when I got a PC, it was still kind of, it wasn't built to game. But I had two games I was obsessed with. One of them was Baldur's Gate 2, actually, the second one. And the other one was Commandos Beyond the Call of Duty, or Behind the Lines. You ever heard of that one?
Yes, I have.
So that was like probably one of my like top 3 games. Blaster Master, Resident Evil, and Commandos. I was just completely obsessed with that game. I loved the whole stealth mechanic, and I love these the squad of guys doing these stealth missions. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite concepts. But yeah, Baldur's Gate 2, I spent so much time on before I even knew what D&D was. It's kind of funny because I always consider myself always into like fantasy stuff, and I played like Hero Quest growing up as a kid, but I never really got the concept of D&D until I played Baldur's Gate 2. That kind of taught me what that was, and I was like, oh wow, there's like a whole book about this stuff.
Right. I think it's awesome that, and you're not the first person to say that. I think it's fantastic that D&D inspired all these video games, and then the video games brought people back into D&D, which I think is a really cool sort of circle of life situation. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think that Baldur's Gate 2 led to me getting very, very heavily into Neverwinter Nights.
Oh, yeah, another classic.
Yeah, I would definitely say that one retro. But I think I played, I don't even know how many hours I put into that game, even going so far as to like making my own custom modules, which was a ton of work back then.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a really good game.
Yeah, well, they're giving us the evil eye over here, but a couple more genres I wanted to talk about. I don't know if you guys dabbled in these. So, 2 other genres that came out, I think this one might be 80s and 90s, but the second one is definitely 90s, which was XCOM and Jagged Alliance.
Oh,
Did you play
yeah. XCOM.
Oh, yeah. So XCOM, I mean, they've redone XCOM now, but I'm talking about the original XCOM.
Yeah,
which was so good.
Go on.
Well, go ahead.
I was going to say, I actually downloaded the original XCOM when I heard about the remake, because I was my buddy Tom always talked to me about XCOM. I think he was really into it. Tom Mason actually is on the chat right now. He got me into that, and like I always liked the idea of it, but I never played it. And then so I downloaded an old version of it and played the original, and it was really cool, even though I didn't understand much of it because I didn't have the manual. But yeah, it was awesome.
That game was so good. I used to call a friend of mine up, and he got it too. And it's not multiplayer, but we have our phone on. This is before cell phones and texting. We had our phone on, and we would just talk as we're playing. Like it'd be like, "Oh my god, what situation?" Because everything is so every fight is kind of random. So you don't know what you're going to get. And this was at a time, and they still did it with the newer XCOMs, which is cool, was that once you're in the battle, you can't really save every step, right? So you're either going to get through this or you're not, right? Or you're going to get through it in a mess and have to live with what you've done. And that was just such a great concept. But I loved that game. Was so good.
You get Jagged Alliance. I never played that, but I discovered it through the Kickstarter board game that was launched recently. So I went back and read about it. I'm like, oh, how did I miss this game? Because it looks like right up my alley.
Well, Jagged Alliance is essentially another flavor of the XCOM genre, different company, but same idea. So instead of being, strike force fighting off aliens invading the Earth, you're sort of on this island and you're commandos. But another great game. I loved both of these. So once XCOM came out and kind of established the genre, there were a bunch of others, and Jagged Alliance, I would say, was the other really successful early entry in the genre that also spawned several, sequels. But that was a great game. That was awesome. Now, one other genre, did you guys ever do any of the flight sim stuff or the space sim stuff?
Definitely not back in the day.
The closest I got was that we had Rogue Squadron, didn't we, Adam? PC? For Mac or something?
Oh, yeah.
I had that Star Wars, the very first Star Wars Battlefront game, I think it was.
Okay.
That was pretty much the only flying game I remember playing back in the day.
And we had Star Fox. 64.
Oh, Star Fox.
Yeah,
I
Star Fox is a classic.
Else.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking of, so there were a bunch of games, but the two that started it off for me, the original flight sim in space that really was amazing to me was Wing Commander. So the Wing Commander series, little known fact, Wing Commander was the first video game who considered their graphics to be so good that on the game box was an actual picture of in-game graphics. So prior to Wing Commander, all box art was actual art, like an artist rendering, but not actually the game content. So Wing Commander was the first game that actually had pictures of the spaceships on the cover because they thought it was that good. Now, if you look at Wing Commander today, you'd be like, oh my God, that's like 40-year-old graphics. But at the time, it was really cool. But what made Wing Commander awesome was this was the game where it had really solid graphics for the time period, and you were basically on a giant space aircraft carrier. So think it's its own universe, but think like Battlestar Galactica, or whatever. And you're on your space carrier, and you're fighting these aliens called the Kilrathi, which are basically space tigers or space lion people. And so you're on your carrier, and all of a sudden, red alert, go to your ready room, and it shows graphics of you running to the ready room, and then they give you a briefing, and then it shows graphics of you running to your fighter, and you get in your fighter, and then it shows your fighter launching like all the sequences in Battlestar Galactica. Now you're in space, and you can use your joystick, and you're flying around, you're dodging bullets, and you're adjusting your shield deflectors and your thrusters, and it's full sim. And then when you land, if you've been shot, when you're landing, you're seeing the damage and the holes in your wings when you pull into the flight deck, and the guy dresses you down for bringing it back in broken up. And it's like it was just like a movie space sim. Like they just nailed it. And they had a bunch of series, and it was actually one of the earlier games too. I think Wing Commander 2 or 3, they started interjecting, it was right when CD-ROMs came out, and they started interjecting live action video between the sequences. And actually they starred Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill was the main guy, as was John Rhys Davies was Paladin, one of the main characters too. So you had these like Hollywood names in a video game, which was also like, what is that about? So nowadays it feels sort of lame, but at that time, having live action video intermingled with the combat and the flying, and it was kind of when the CD-ROMs first came out, there was this craze of like, oh my God, we got more storage and what to do with it. And so they started throwing like live action video right into the games, which again, now it's like big deal, right? But back then, like having actual audio dialogue and full video and all that was like mind blowing, and it was a really cool experience, and paved the way for games like X-Wing, and Privateer, right, which are also probably better known games now because Privateer is not that long ago, and X-Wing also, and TIE Fighter and all the Star Wars games also X-Wing and TIE Fighter particularly, I think were even more sim like Wing Commander was a little arcadey, whereas X-Wing and TIE Fighter were really, really simmy. Like if you could only get good at those games if you really enjoyed the detailed aspects of flying in space. So it was really a cool genre that unfortunately it had a big heyday in the late 90s, and then it kind of, like to your guys' point, I don't know that there's a lot of good space combat sims.
Yeah, I don't know.
One comes out, but they're very small. Yeah.
I was looking at pictures of this as you were talking about it, and it looks really cool, like something I would play when I was younger.
That was fun.
Did not get into that one. We did. I think the other genre we spent a lot of time playing. That what you were talking about while you're describing that with the ship getting damage and stuff reminded me of an old arcade game we played called Lucky and Wild. Did you ever hear that? Play this one?
I don't know that one. Yeah, what was that one like?
So, have you ever seen the movie Tango and Cash?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, great movie.
So they basically made a parody of Tango and Cash in this arcade game where it was a driving arcade game where you sat behind a steering wheel, but there was a steering wheel and two guns, like light guns. And so the first player would drive and shoot, the second player would shoot, and you're just driving the sports car around chasing criminals because you're like these, crazy wild cops. And you're just chasing criminals, shooting up the city and stuff. And at the end of the level, you'll pull up and see how bad your car is all blown up because the criminals throwing grenades at you and you're driving through buildings. But yeah, that one was a really memorable arcade game.
Awesome. That sounds really cool too. Could you get out? Because that's
no, you couldn't get out of that one.
Oh, see, yeah, didn't quite come all the way around there. Guys, this has been a lot of fun, but unfortunately the donut shop guy's giving us the evil here. But was there any games that are like we didn't talk about that you really wanted to squeeze in here as classics?
I think we got all the ones I was going to talk about. Brady?
Oh, I think Brady's got a switch headset.
I think he had to run to the bathroom or something.
I think he had to run to the bathroom. He had too much coffee. Well, Adam, thanks for joining us here. We'll say goodbye to Brady later, but we'll see you both on the main show here in about a week. But thanks for joining us here in Dunks chatting with me about all these great videos.
Hey,
yeah, definitely.
You chatted with me too. I just didn't talk.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh.
Good seeing you, Craig. I'm glad you were there to listen.
You know what? My experience with video games is going over to Russ's apartment when we were much younger and watching him play.
Yes, Craig used to come over and play. We used to come over and watch. We'd play some of the Sierra games together, like Gabriel Knight.
Yep.
And
like, Craig, this is like a story. If you come over, and I was like,
yeah.
He's like,
it was like watching
together. I was like, I don't want to play. I just want to watch you play. And so I would. One time you got me over and we had a big party with StarCraft, and you plotted behind my back.
I did.
And you had everybody attack me, and the whole plan was when Craig starts to swear, everybody attack him.
Yes.
So you stabbed me in the back, and when I went, God damn it, and everybody attacked me.
It was brilliant. Yeah, we had that time period. I had a little like 3 or 4 machines in my basement, and so once in a while I had everybody over and we do like LAN party StarCraft and stuff. That was lots of fun.
That is an indication of how long you've lived in that house.
It is
an investment, my friend. That is an investment.
I've gotten a lot of use out of this home, so that's good.
You have indeed.
I judge the years by video games a lot too. So
that's right, exactly. It is. It's like it is, and what's scary about it is like when I realize how long it's been because how different the games. Like in my mind, they don't look that different. Yeah. In my mind, there's this idealized version of me flying spaceships around that look amazing. But then when I go look at like old YouTube videos, I'm like, oh my God, that's like 50-year-old graphics. What happened?
Yep. I go back and play Ultima Online on those free servers. I'm like, how did I play this game?
Right. Or GOG, right? The good old games. You go in there and play all these old games and it's like, oh my God. But they're still fun. That's what makes these games awesome. I mean, I still get in there and play them and I'm like, man, this actually was a really good game.
Yeah.
So Brady's in the chat room with Tom and he's having audio problems.
I see that. Well, why don't we
and we'll just everybody will just have to trust us that we're actually.
Yes, we'll say goodbye in Dunks here, and we'll see if we can get Brady's audio problem squared away. So, thank you, Adam, for joining us.
And Brady, Brady's joining,
and Brady too. Even though we can't talk,
can't hear him.
Brady, thank you for joining us. He had many insightful contributions, even though he can't say anything now.
Flushing.
All right, and he's going to the bathroom as well. He's washing his hands. Thank you, Brady. All right, he's commenting here in the chat.
Okay.
All righty, boys. We'll see you on the main show in about a week.
All right.
Thanks for purchasing a D6G Lost Chapter. Supporting the show helps it grow.